squad of effective characters kept the city's heart and the American League pennant, coming within one game of the World Series title. Just a bit outside, streams on the Roku channel beginning Friday. Getting my peanuts and Cracker Jack in Hollywood and then the
Couldn't even bring the groceries without getting winded.
Groupie in the vein, baby, go ahead, lady in the trance. Damn, maybe on the glam, maybe with a hand. And pimping in advance, take a fucking.
And life you deserve.
Officials say they are ready to talk. In fact, some 70 countries have approached them. Talks are planned
Get even better results. Bundle Dig Deeper with Shakeology. All-in-one nutrition that gives your body what it needs and helps you lose weight. Save up to 60%. Just go to body.com today. That's bodywithanI.com.
Woodcraft has lowered the prices on hundreds of the woodworking essentials that you use every day. Visit your local Woodcraft store to discover all the ways Woodcraft is helping you make wood work.
It became very clear there was two separate teams. Vinton, a 4-year employee with the U.S. Digital Service, witnessed how the little-known government agency, which under prior administrations was aimed at using tech for efficiency, was renamed DOGE by President Trump in one of his first in office. In his quest to slash the federal government.
We very much felt convenient container. They could have access to our office space. You could have access
Patients who have sensitive teeth but also want whiter teeth, they have to make a choice, one versus the other. Sensodyne Clinical White provides 2 shades whiter teeth as well as providing 24/7 sensitivity protection. Patients are going to love to see Sensodyne on the shelf.
I didn't get the sense that DOGE really understood the rules or wanted to play by the rules.
With the stroke of a pen,
This is an order creating and implementing the Department of Governmental Efficiency known as DOGE.
Okay, that's a big one.
Policy Vinton became a part of DOGE.
We went in and were excited to understand who we'd be working with. And it became very clear there was 2 separate teams.
Vinton, a 4-year employee with the U.S. Digital Service, witnessed how the little-known government agency, which under prior administrations was aimed at using tech for efficiency, was renamed DOGE by President Trump in one of his first acts in office.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
Taken over by Elon Musk in his quest to slash the federal government.
So we very much felt American. Convenient container for DOGE. They could have access to the White House through our office space. They could have access to email accounts, things like admin, and the ability to hire people.
Vinton sat down with CNN for her first network TV interview, detailing for the first time what she calls a highly secretive operation she watched over the course of the 2 months she was technically a DOGE employee, as it infiltrated various agencies.
DOGE is just constantly changing their tactics to achieve their objectives. So sometimes that is hiring people directly into an agency. and having that individual report into the secretary. In other places, it is having people that have multiple badges and can go around and kind of connect a bunch of different agencies and what they're trying to achieve.
Vinton says the waves of new staff with ties to Musk and his companies have limited knowledge of how federal agencies work, and what she calls a careless disregard for wanting to learn. As one of the architects of Direct File, a platform for filing taxes online, she said she came to government to use her technology expertise to make life easier for Americans.
What I see Doge is doing is they're actually breaking a lot of that down. They're actually breaking those things apart.
That left her feeling rudderless, with no clear sense of the mission or who was actually in charge. And she never saw Musk or even heard from him. Who is really interested?
Just like everyone else, I don't actually know.
So is Doge an agency?
There seems to be more of an idea and a belief system than an agency itself.
A belief system that Vinton warns there may be no coming back from.
No Americans try to understand that it is a wrecking ball and that it's not a scalpel, and it is going to dramatically increase the government's capacity to deliver services and benefits in the next few years.
And a lot of these questions of Musk and Doge's authority that she talks about here is being questioned in court and is the subject of ongoing litigation. Vinton left voluntarily in mid-March because her second 2-year term was coming to an end. And Aaron, we of course reached out to Doge for the response to what she told us, and we did not receive the response.
As our press secretary is brushing off the public view over tariffs between Musk and Navarro, Caroline Levitt says, in her words, boys will be boys and that the sparring will be allowed to continue. Musk escalated the feud on X, calling Navarro a total moron. Accusing him of
this Doge line is great, but we understand what's going on here. We just have to understand. Elon sells cars. And he's in Texas, assembling cars. From China, Japan, electronics come from Taiwan, and he's simply protecting his own interests, as any business person would do.
Claire Duffy is in New York, even allowing for legitimate differences of opinion. Elon Musk calling him a dumber than bricks and a moron is in somewhat of a league of its own.
Yeah, Richard, I mean, we're sort of shouting to the void here, and Caroline Levitt can try to write this off as boys will be boys, but these are in fact two of the most powerful men in the country having this public feud at a time when millions of Americans are really fearful about what this economic uncertainty means for their livelihoods. And so I think that is worth saying. But what is interesting about this situation is that you have Musk, who has been one of the most fervent supporters of Trump. He's one of his closest advisors, and yet he is now breaking with the White House when it comes to this tariff policy. You hear Navarro trying to sort of explain that away as saying Musk assembles cars in the U.S. Musk then pushing back on that, calling Navarro, as you said, they're a moron, and saying his comments are demonstrably false and that Tesla actually manufactures a lot of its parts in the United States. And indeed, Tesla really has dominated Cars.com American-made index for the past few years. That takes into account things like assembly location, where the parts are made, engine origin. But Musk has said that Tesla is not immune to tariffs and that the impact could be significant. And I think what is really at the core of all of this, what's really interesting about this, is that even a company like Tesla, which has proudly proclaimed that it has American production, is not going to be immune to these tariffs. And so you have someone like Musk, who has been so close to Trump on so many policy issues, now is having to break with him because his company and many companies are at risk from this.
Well, after the death of a second child from measles in the USA and Texas, U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's also a well-known vaccine critic / skeptic, now stressing the importance of vaccination. CNN's Meg Tyrrell has the list.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. went to Texas on Sunday to attend the funeral of this school-age child who died from measles, the second death in this measles outbreak. The first was another school-age child. They both were unvaccinated, and we know of this child that they were previously healthy, had no previous reported underlying health conditions. The cause of death was measles pulmonary failure, and we know that measles can cause pneumonia as a complication of severe disease, which is one of the reasons this virus can be dangerous. It's a very large and quickly growing outbreak that's really centered in West Texas. That state reporting 481 cases in this outbreak, 56 hospitalizations, and 2 deaths. This is also nearby states to New Mexico, also to Oklahoma and Kansas. There's also one death investigation. You can see from this line graph that particularly in Texas, growing just suggests that the fact that there are there are likely many more cases that haven't happened, possibly into thousands. And so there's a lot of concern that this outbreak is going to continue and will be very large. 98% of the cases in Texas were unvaccinated or flu infections.
Everyone is truly
Status is unknown. And there's been a lot of push to see a more wholehearted endorsement of vaccination, particularly from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is known as an anti-vaccine advocate.
Who seeks refuge at another church.
What's tonight?
Okay. Also from the CDC, where it has not been communicating to the degree that we are used to in outbreaks of this kind. However, over the weekend, Secretary Kennedy did post on social media the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles is the MMR vaccine. So that is a step in the right direction, health experts say, but they also want to hear him go farther to say that the vaccine is safe and that people should get it as the best way to prevent measles and to stop this outbreak. They're also concerned about misinformation. He put in another social media post lauding doctors on the ground in Texas who are providing unapproved treatments for measles. They stress that really vaccination is the best way to prevent this and the best way to stop this outbreak.
Everything's going to be better. Do you believe me?
Eric killed those boys. He shot them.
Judy Greer is the mother school shooter in Eric LaRue.
There's something so isolating about grief, regardless of what it is that you're grieving, and how Evan is truly ill-equipped to deal with it.
That includes her pastor.
I just want to understand why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling.
There's more than just you involved. You don't want these wounds to get infected.
And her husband, played by Alexander Skarsgård, who seeks refuge at another church.
What's tonight?
Prayer group at Redeemer. Want to join?
No, thank you.
You're really starting to understand more about the Lord's path for me.
What are you understanding?
More about the Lord's path. You have a clear, if there is, God has a greater plan. This happened for a reason. It's not your fault. Okay, good. Then I can breathe again. You should went to healing and pray.
Stop talking to me like that. I'm not a child.
The film is the directorial debut of actor Michael Shannon.
I love all the characters so much that to just be involved with one of them seemed like I'd be cheating myself. I wanted to be involved in the creation of all of them. I wanted to be involved in the community as a whole, because I saw it as a story about community.
There's so many stories in this story. Certainly when we were making it, I was like, oh right, it's a story about grief. Oh right, it's a story about community. Oh right, it's a story about kids in this country and what they're dealing with, and so many layers to it.
I don't want to talk about what happened to my son.
I feel the same way.
Your son isn't gone, Janice. Your son is alive.
In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
There's a mission-critical tech solution that you need to implement now if you want to succeed, and you want so much. It's called EasyCater. EasyCater is your nationwide, soup-to-nuts tech platform for ordering food for your workplace. You get what you need when you need it.
That's what EasyCater brings to the table. Integrated bagel logistics, ultra-scalable burrito deployment, and game-changing salad procurement.
So you can focus on what really matters. I get a steam.
Start an order at easycater.com.
Blackmail on day one? Not good.
Streaming exclusively off the net.
Very unlikely that these are Chinese regular soldiers.
I used to think menthol cigarettes weren't as bad as other cigarettes because they didn't seem as harsh. Here's a tip. Heart attacks caused by smoking menthols are just as harsh. Trust me, I had one at the age of 36.
Menthol cigarettes are just as damaging as other cigarettes. You can quit. For free help, text QUIT NOW to 333-888.
Before the emergency medicine, you never know what you're going to get.
Even when you do everything right, you don't always get what you hope for.
The Pit, streaming exclusively on net. So as you know, since the start of the invasion,
Seen as exclusive and their participation in the war and claim that these are not regular soldiers, they don't know how they ended up because just as the Russian side. So I think it's important not to perhaps exaggerate the importance of this impeachment trial.
Well, what do you believe China's intentions are, given the current effort at ceasefire and potentially peace negotiations? Do you believe that China wants to see this war come to an end?
the U.S. and others have been watching very closely to see if China were to give military support to Russia. China gives a lot of support to Russia already, but weapons.
The U.S. there, while China perhaps has plans of its own in Asia.
And South Korea to fight back.
Well, it rather seems as though the Chinese are not in a particular hurry to see this war end. I believe that at the outset, when Putin told President Xi that President Putin told his Chinese counterpart that they were going to war, that he believed it would be over pretty quickly. So the fact that it's gone on for more than 3 years, and China has become in some ways increasingly involved in supporting the Russian military effort by providing economic support, by oil and gas in particular, but most importantly by supplying certain industrial goods, dual use goods, some of which found their way into Russian military industry, and really supported the Russian military efforts indirectly. I think without Chinese support, there's no way the Russians could continue fighting. So logic would suggest that surely they should have an interest in this war coming to an end, particularly now that the United States is making overtures to Russia. And the Chinese have in the past said that they support the peace process, that they will continue to try to broker something with Ukraine, but they haven't shown so far real willingness to do it, and there's some doubt about whether they have diplomatic conflict.
Hey! So, cousin. It's a lot better on my phone.
Honey, it's a work thing. Mine's also a work thing. I just need to cover my shift.
Mine. Alan says your business vehicle is now covered with Progressive. Protected 24/7, just like your home and auto.
Oh, that's great.
She didn't touch this for a long time. I'm sorry.
I'm trying my best.
You know, I heard that ground turkey is the healthiest poultry. You know what? Never mind. Just be on your phone.
I guess people make money playing online somehow, like streaming, but I don't know, it doesn't seem realistic. Rich in subtitling large view performance details and years of but we sounded out the right
So they continue to supply struggle.
Greg Nunziata is a veteran of the conservative legal movement. He's a former Justice Department official and worked as policy advisor to Senator Marco Rubio. Greg now joins us from Washington. Greg, thank you so much for joining the show. So the Supreme Court ruled the president and the administration can continue to use the Aliens Enemy Act, but the judicial review is required. Here is how the president responded on social media to the decision. The Supreme Court has upheld the rule of law in our nation by allowing the president, whoever that may be able to secure our borders and protect our families, our country itself. Interpreted it and came down with it.
Overstating is trying to claim a plan where the court obviously ruled all the last was that these district where the detainees are being held, not as a class in Washington. That's it. That was the procedural decision. The case goes forward. But in making that decision, multiple justices went out of their way to write explicitly that all 9 of them agree that these individuals deserve due process, and really importantly, not just due process, but due process with notice and a meaningful opportunity to be held, to be heard in court. And that is what the administration was trying to evade at the outset, and that is what they're going to have to try to contend with now as these cases move forward. So no, it's not the victory they're portraying it at. It's a narrow victory, but a jurisdictional question. And I just want to say, I know this case is about a few hundred people. It's about foreigners who may be members of a criminal gang, and Americans may not know why they should care. Part of who we are as Americans. It's about the separation of powers, the rule of law, and due process. And the court those values on site. And so we'll have to see where it goes from here.
And to that point of habeas corpus that you noted that all 9 justices agreed upon, that was actually written by conservative Justice Kavanaugh. Here's what he said. All 9 justices agreed that the Venezuelan migrants detained in the United States must receive advance notice and the opportunity to challenge their deportation before they could be removed. He wrote in concurrence with others. The split among the court was over where and how this should happen, as you noted. So how significant is this assertion and the right, as highlighted by Justice Kavanaugh, to habeas corpus?
This is really significant, particularly given what the administration has been plainly trying to do. In their view, beyond the reach of American law, without any meaningful review. The court has now these individuals built they may challenge the constitutionality of the Alien Enemies Act to begin with. Second, they may challenge how that act is being applied. Gang of Venezuela, Americans don't have the court may be asked to answer that question. And then finally, if we impose constitutional, if we are at war, are these individuals being actually members of this gang? Are they actually alien enemies? Are they actually of the appropriate age? All that will be litigated on an individual basis. The administration will now have to defend hundreds of these cases in the federal courts.
Are we gearing up for a constitutional crisis between 3, I guess now 2 co-equal branches of government here? And that is obviously the administration itself versus the courts, because it does appear that President Trump and his administration is trying to say the courts have no right to direct national security policy over the United States in using the Alien Enemies Act. I mean, ultimately, the fact that the Supreme Court took up this case is one point to be made, but do you think that their decision will down on the side of the administration that they, in fact, are using it constitutionally, given the makeup of the court?
Well, I don't know. I'm hopeful by some of the things that were said in those decisions last night. It's absolutely true that this court has a generally protective view or a strong view of executive power, and executive power is at its strongest point under our laws when the president is dealing with national security and international issues. I think that's why the president, who is in trying to weaken the court's ability to play a constitutional role, has a lot of conflicts that he's structured at least or presented as national security rather than like here law enforcement or immigration issues. So he's trying to confront the courts on the strongest ground he has. But I don't think the judiciary is going to allow the president and his administration to disappear people to Latin America by simply uttering words or issuing a proclamation. This really does challenge fundamental rights and values that we have as Americans. I think the court will draw some appropriate lines.
Is challenging the British government's decision to downgrade the level of security within the United Kingdom. It came up the Duke of Sussex and his wife Meghan stepped down as working members of the British royal family. Dylan's and Salma Abdulaziz also on them.
We weren't sure if we were going to see him today, but Prince Harry made a surprise appearance. Now, he very rarely shows up in the UK, and that's because Prince Harry says figures for safety. That's exactly why he's shown up at the Royal Courts of Justice in London today for the next stage in a legal battle that has drawn out for nearly 3.5 years now. He's seeking more security and protection for his family. Now, all of this started in 2020 when Prince Harry and his wife Meghan stepped down from their roles as full-time working royals. At that point, his taxpayer-funded protection was downgraded from the highest level of security to a case-by-case basis. His lawyer in court today is arguing that decision was unfair and that Prince Harry was singled out, in her words, for inferior treatment. Now, the appeal will mostly be held in open sessions, much of it live streamed for the public to see. This is a deeply personal case for Prince Harry, who says his family his fears around their safety. Now, a judge is expected to issue a decision in writing at a later date. Salma Abdulaziz, CNN, London.
This is a year. US biased. It means actually taking, or at least giving back gains, or is it? Are you really talking about just adding new?
Remember when you would do this at a public county like this, there's only one thing that you're buying now, but whether you're getting a loss or not, is what will you want. What will you want is always you're always looking for, you can't think back.
When you're 65 and that period where you transition to retirement, I call it the red zone. That's really one of the riskier times in your investment life because you're really exposed to potential down market. If you're panicking, you're not alone. Ideally you have a plan in place. Now, if you haven't had a portfolio that you feel like is invested to be able to withstand this downturn, what can you do now? One of
stocks, investments when they're down, and then not be in the market when it recovers. That's one of the most unfortunate things I see is you sell on a downturn, but when are you going to be back in? Another, if you're already portfolios, reduce your spending. You should really spend with a plan, including impact on your spending. So, and the third is if you haven't already retired, continuing to work, even part-time income, every sources of income you have can help stabilize a portfolio. Three steps that really so part of investing. You're not going to ignore it. You're not going to use really to address it.
Tired of waiting? The Earn an app gets you paid as you work. You can get up to $150 per day with a max of $750 between paydays with no interest and no credit checks. Download Earn and make any day payday. I told myself I was okay with my moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis symptoms.
With my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. But just okay isn't okay.
And I was done settling.
If you still have symptoms after trying Arellano, is one step the makers of Arellano that can rapidly relieve joint pain. Joint damage.
Lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin. Serious allergic reactions, GI tears and death. Heart attack and stroke occur. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events: infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant, or planning. Don't take an allergic or have an infection.
Ask your rheumatologist if switching to Invoke is right for you.
And take back what's yours. The thing about emergency medicine, you never know what you're going to get. I need help here.
You know, I always get what you hope for. The Pit, streaming exclusively on Max.
And from Beijing to beyond, let's get more on the growing international fallout over Donald Trump's tariff plan. Justin Wolfers is professor of economics and public policy at the University of Michigan and joins us from Ann Arbor. Justin, on the one hand, I love seeing you as much as we have the past few days, but every time we do, it suggests that things are not going well in the economy. So take that however you want to interpret it. But let's talk about here we are just hours away from this deadline tonight. Go into effect and to escalate the way it did, because according to him, they're playing with a pair of twos. Let me ask you, China is saying they're fighting till the very end. What impact, how can they retaliate against the United States, and what impact could that have on Americans?
And these tariffs, the funny thing is, in fact, President Trump is cutting us off from China. Many American businesses imports from China as raw materials into their later production processes. You and I probably have maybe I don't. You may have an iPhone in your back pocket put together in China. We can't use sufficient manufacturing places there. $2,000. China is going to market in the United States where we sell to the mining industry, education, Chinese students visit, the huge tourist industry, huge miner of agricultural goods. And as Trump ratchets up the tariffs and China matches them, that's going to be a whole lot.
Just I want to play some sound from Peter Navarro, the White House advisor, what he said. Major price hikes. Nobody said earlier this week.
Really? So. $1,000. On lively possibility is utter nonsense. Chinese embassy posted Trump acknowledges the situation is and is worse. Situation that is somewhat explosive. Mix it up a little bit. Just today, the Dow was 1,000 points swing from high to low. People's retirement started off today up more than 1,400 points because investors had this optimism that maybe, all this I quote him, China also wants to make it turns out there was no deal. It turned out this is real life, that these are massive tariffs. And I will tech stock analyst who will join me in a moment said today was one of the scariest days in 3 decades. A few really matter to the U.S. economy, like China.
Today was one of the scariest days he's seen in 3 decades.
Countries like China, who have chosen to retaliate and try to double down on their mistreatment of American workers, are making a mistake. President Trump has a spine of steel, and he will not break.
Countries like China, who have chosen to
it's interesting she looked down, reading those words, they were prepared words, right? Spine of steel was not an off-the-cuff, extemporaneous comment. Spine of steel was what they wanted out there. And the response in China was an overwhelming patriotic rally. People flooding social media there with the same message, essentially a hashtag. The message in part says, make no mistake, when challenged, we will never back down. Post after post after post, that phrase. So the fear and chaos on Wall Street and among investors and CEOs around the world, causing a break actually on Trump's own team. Elon Musk, turns out, does run companies and is an executive. Doesn't like Peter Navarro, writing Navarro is truly a moron. He says yours is truly false. Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks. Then he went even further, writing, I'd like to apologize to bricks. Calling Navarro dumber than a sack of bricks. Musk also slamming Navarro for his comments about Tesla. Export he invented, Ron Navarro. Out last night, the New York Times, Navarro invented an export for his books, where he vows to China. That export he quoted often was named Ron Navarro. Navarro quoted Navarro as saying, "You've got to be nuts to eat China." And if you're thinking such a thing to make up a person, in this case using just to make up a person. John Barron was actually Trump. Trump would claim to be this guy, John Barron, to call the New York tabloids to talk about how much money he had to give them numbers that perhaps weren't true. We all know Trump cares about his image and his media presentation. That is something that the biggest names in technology know full well, as they one by one have shown up when Trump wants them to be there, donating millions of dollars to his inauguration, sitting just a few feet away from him at that ceremony. You can see them all there. We're circling them. Zuckerberg, Bezos, the Google CEO, Musk, Tim Cook. Has that paid off? Did that pay off going to that inauguration? Well, if you look at it in one way, it has not as of yet. Look at the biggest losers of the trade war. Since that photo at the inauguration, Amazon has lost $539 billion. That is $500 billion. Meta has lost $235 billion. Google, $500 billion. Apple, more than $1 trillion. More than $1 trillion. Absolutely incredible. $500 billion. These numbers are really impossible. He left his wife near the outside in New York City. Hardly ever been seen. It's story. Yes, I'm going to say, oi, West. I was going to ask the spices. We should be using these spices. We enjoy what do you think is going to be the effect? What are you expecting the effect of all of this to be on your business? Thanks for having us and thanks for giving us the chance to talk about it. You know, we're a spice company. We import from 30 different countries around the world. Much Vietnam and black pepper from Zanzibar. You know, it's not like we can just switch our supply chain. The idea, I mean, so silly in a sense. You know what I mean? Is the cost of the raw materials. Yeah, well, what we really know about the spice world is whatever the ripple is at sourcing for the company, it becomes a wave by the time it hits the customers. So only a few cents of increase for big companies can turn into dollars at the register for regular customers. And so, you know, spices don't grow domestically. There's no domestic cinnamon. There's no domestic peppercorns. We don't think about this as we sprinkle some of the most iconic American ingredients, you know, into our dishes from apple pie to ice cream. But really, cinnamon is tree bark that comes in from Vietnam, and that's where it grows the best. And in Vietnam, we're talking about 46% tariffs. Who knows where it's going to end, but this is going to lead to big increase in cost to register for everyday. How much can you, either of you, how much can you eat of that cost yourself? The way it's going to go, of course, is the wholesaler and then it gets distributed out at cents per whatever to everybody else in the chain. But to large manufacturers like yourself, you do have the percentage, the ability to eat quite a bit of that cost. We're planning to eat the whole thing. I mean, that's our approach here. We're a small company, but we're committed to our customers, to accessibility. Our prices are kept at under $10 on our website, and we think we can absorb the cost. I think people are really gonna see it in the supermarket on a lot of other products, but we're committed to keeping our prices steady and not raising our prices in response to these tariffs.
It's been a crazy 5 or 6 years now as a pro. I remember the first year, I missed every cut on the PGA Tour. It's just been a lot of growing, and that's what this life is about, what golf's about, but more so just growing up and becoming the person that I am. And you learn so much, especially as a young kid. So it's just such a different lifestyle, but I would never trade it for the world. I've learned so much so young, and just so grateful for everything that's kind of come to fruition.
Akshay Bhatia has certainly done golf the hard way. A supremely talented junior player, he turned professional right out of high school. It took him a few years to find his feet, but now he's a two-time PGA Tour winner with some very lofty ambitions.
I feel like to be the best player in the world or to be the top player in the world, you need to have belief. Some people figure it out along the way, or some people just have it naturally. And so I never questioned it. I never doubted this journey. I felt like regardless it was going to work out.
Where do you think that confidence comes from?
Growing up being one of the better players, in my region of North Carolina and to worldwide playing sport events around the world. So I always felt like that confidence just grew and grew. It's always been there. There's hiccups along the way. I think my mental coach and I talked about trust in myself versus the confidence. The confidence all stays, but it's the trust that kind of go away sometimes.
Changing the way you are.
Oh yeah, no, I'm in the process of it. It's not easy for me. Obviously, my stature and my family, we're all pretty small, we're all pretty skinny. So, yeah, I'm definitely tired of people asking about my waist size and how much I weigh, and so I can people always good.
I do like to
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be without that. My mom works two jobs. My dad travels with me all the time. And we never grew up with that much, that much financial backing. So it's been great.
and just see the growth and confidence.
I mean, she didn't know anything about golf when we first met, and now she understands everything and how much I care about it. And she listens to me all the time. She really understands. She knows I'm excited. We're so blessed and so fortunate, but to be able to go visit certain places every week and do it together versus solo, it's a big change.
Where are you going today? Swiping right daily to first interview. Claims agents recently detained him at the airport after returning home from a family vacation abroad. Why? Civil rights lawyer says the agents targeted him policies, including now. Thank you for joining. Understand we have
Honestly, and so that was the so it led me to special agent wanted you identify who it was. So that was asked me the question, and they profile. I high profile case involved in the alarmed as to questioning us.
It must have been pretty stunning for them to give you your own career to you and know you were in that.
For me to pause and be alarmed as to what the purpose of the questioning was.
It must have been pretty stunning for them to give you your own career to you and know who you were in that particular realm. I mean, they also they wanted your phone. What specific information? And did you give them?
To figure out just
Well, the first question they wanted was, is your phone with
Particular
you?
realm. I mean, they also they wanted your phone. What specific information?
First question they wanted was, is your phone with you? And I said, yes, it is. And they handed me a pamphlet, and it had a federal statute on it that basically said that they're allowed to confiscate my phone at the border. And they told me very clearly, they said, we're going to take your phone, or you can open your phone and let us go through the contents of your phone. And at that point, I told them, you guys already know that I'm an attorney, and I have privileged communication in my phone. I'm not going to just willingly give you my phone and allow you to rummage through all the contents of whatever's in my cell phone. It's just not going to happen. And it took me about an hour and a half of debate with these agents before they agreed to not take my phone, but only if I first let them look at the contact list that I have, people that are stored in my phone, a contact list to see who the names were.
79 people are now confirmed dead in a search for the cause of a roof collapse at a popular nightclub in the Dominican Republic. 2 former players from Major League Baseball are among the dead. CNN contributor Sylvia Possible has the very latest now reporting in from Santo Domingo.
The search and rescue operations here in Santo Domingo are continuing throughout the night. As you can see behind my back, the teams are working hard with no stop, and there are at least 3 major trains that are being used throughout the biggest of the debris that are still on the top of the dancing floor, because the rooftop of the jet set in Santo Domingo crashed on the top of the dancing floor in the early hours of this Tuesday. Dozens of people have been pronounced dead, but almost 24 hours since tragedy occurred. Teams are still not giving up their hopes, and they're still trying frantically, combing through the debris to find as many people alive as quickly as possible. And in the meantime, here in the area surrounding the jet set, you can see the community coming together. Dozens of people come here to pay their respect, jet set. We're going to take the difference between the exports and imports of the country, right? And you're going to calculate your tariffs based off of that. That's the incentive. And just your bottom line on this formula, is it good or yes, formula is definitely not good. That was what I was thinking, is even the derivation of what is not a trade policy. Yeah, okay. I said, hold on, while you're talking here, I said I had my sheet, so I put it on my board to discuss what I'm trying to do, just to try to make sense of it, okay? So this is where we are, right? Talk about Japan, right? We went through Japan. So they got 46% tariff. Stood up there, 46% tariff. So across the numbers here, the difference between the exports and imports, I feel it on the numbers. There's one number here, though, with red. That's your number. That's
number. That's the number they say is your number, right? You take that number, that's the magic number. You plug it into their equations, you get 46%. Close, but not quite. The number that we would put, that I would put for that value is 0.95. Okay, and that differs from the one that they used, like you said, 0.25. You know, the difference is almost a factor of 4. So, 0.95, then what happens to this, to the 46? Right. So, you know, if you change a number in the denominator, the bottom part of the fraction, by a factor of 4, reduce the side, the tariff by a factor. So specifically, held up line and it had a 46. Over like 12. Still 15%. The other thing I mentioned, because got that 0.25. They got it from you. I should have been more accurate. Well, not quite. It's, you know, this is an unbelievable just now market tremendous thing. This is a really, really consequential policy for everyone. The whole methodology explaining how they did this is, you know, a couple of pages long, and I can't answer that question. I have colleagues saying, what is that 0.25 number? And, you know, for instance, I don't even know. Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, you talk about literally connecting one piece. Absolutely stunning to think about that, and I think so important. All of that, how did it come out this way every year? I really appreciate your time. Yes. Let me trade that. Step by step.
Created online and hybrid programs that flex to help you balance your full life. Focus on what's right in front of you. National University, supporting the whole you.
Now that potentially creates opportunities for other countries, for example, to capitalize on the fact that Chinese producers. We've seen, for example, Apple suggesting that it might to source more products from India to supply the US market, so there's potential.
So much more. It was terrible. I was totally stranded.
No TP?
Nope. Empty roll.
So what happened? Well, we started buying Charmin Mega XL.
Whoa, that's huge.
Charmin Mega XL is 6 rolls in 1 and lasts so much longer, you don't always have to worry about the roll running out. I'm glad we're rescued, Dad.
Me too. It was a huge relief.
Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Turning to our top story now.
Guaranteed to bid or your money back.
Away from opposing, and it's
The thing about emergency medicine, you never know what you're going to get.
from China.
They do everything right.
White House.
make it difficult, to say the least, to move that all back here. Matt Priest, he is president and CEO of the trade group Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America, which strongly opposes the tariffs.